Manning Passing Academy, baby. And man, I heard the story the other day of you guys talking about it. I laughed my ass off. Everything you said, like, couldn't have been more true. And like, as it comes down to it, right? Like, we were in fucking what, Thibodaux, Louisiana.
Thibodaux, yeah.
You had been a couple years before, so you were the fucking vet of being there. And
old Roxy's.
You're like, you know what? They're gonna take you out tonight. You're gonna have a fucking good time. And I'm like, well, fucking hell yeah, let's go. This is amazing. You got out of there a little bit earlier because you know what the next day entails. I don't. I'm the last person to leave the fucking place. So I, am crippled damn near walking back into the dorm room and, hop on the bed, probably pass out fully clothed. But I go take my phone, plug it in. And it was just like one of those things where I either like rolled in my sleep and like yanked the cord out of the wall. But like, as I wake up at like whatever fucking time it was the next day and like grab my phone in that panic and I look and it's dead. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be really, really fucking bad. And then like, just because of like how talked about I was after the Heisman and all the things I was doing in that offseason before spring break and this and that, and me being an asshole on fucking Twitter and social media and just like asking for it. There was so much talk about what had happened or where he was. And a lot of people obviously came at you and were like, where the fuck's he at? And you're like, I'm doing my own shit. I got my own shit to come out here and be a counselor and worry about myself. Like, I'm not Johnny's fucking babysitter. And it's like, he's fucking goddamn right. Like, he's not. But walking back into there, I was like, man, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. I was, I overslept, my bad. And they're like, it was like somebody had told them something that like happened the night before that like I went off campus. I remember what it was.
So I was about to say I heard a story, but I didn't hear it until after.
Some guys and me were talking about going to fucking New Orleans. Yeah. We were like, I was like, for the next night or whatever it was, I'm like, I'll get us a driver and we can all hop up and go down to Bourbon for a couple hours. And then they'll bring us back at like 3 or 4 in the morning. So I think they thought they like, we did that night because it was definitely something between the guys that we had there.
So my boy, Logan Kilgore, do you remember him?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So after all this happens, and then, the last, I think we had a day or two left and Mr. Arch was like, hey, it's a bad, sucks scenario everybody's going to be in. This is what's happening. I was all right. And I remember asking Logan, like, hey, this is probably a day or two after. I'm like, what the fuck happened? Like, because he stayed. I told him that night. I said, "Hey, I'm going in early," and just because I knew that first night when it was that wasn't the night where Coop gets up and sings. I think it was the next night when he does that, and I knew that night was going to be like that's usually when everybody goes hard, and so I was like, "All right, I'm gonna call this night early," and And I remember asking him, like, the next night at Roxy's probably, I was like, what happened? And he was like, I don't know. There was talks about all of us getting in a cab, going to New Orleans down to Bourbon Street. I was like, what? And I was like, are you serious? He was like, yeah. It was getting a little wild there. I was like, man. Shit.
After it happened too, obviously, like I was, understanding of the responsibility of being a camp counselor there and what an amazing opportunity it is to go and do that because you do, being in the SEC, how much you love the Mannings and what they mean. And, I was a Manning Award winner the year before. So had met everybody in the family really. And, had so much respect for him. So when they sat me down and told me that, they were going to send me home, I just remember being like, man, this fucking sucks because it means a lot to me. These guys mean a lot to me. And this is something that I won't be able to ever really fix or get back. The consequences of the media and what comes with it and all that didn't mean anything to me. I can handle that. I can handle walking into SEC media days and getting my ass kicked for a couple hours, whatever. It was more the stain that it left on them for a couple years, and obviously letting down the Manning family because I do respect them so much, and luckily, throughout the years, I've still been able to get in a multitude of situations where we've had really good talks. Feels like it's water under the bridge,
Yeah.
and feels like it's all okay, but it's definitely something that a moment that we share in time that I look back on my college career and I'm like, fuck, man, just go 50% for one night at the bar.
Well, I'll tell you the hardest thing for me, dude, and like you said, we never talked about this. The hardest thing for me was how I felt like you were always somebody that, people didn't know this, but I looked up to just from your game alone because you did shit that I couldn't do, right? Being able to run around and I every once in a while I'd pull out like, oh shit, AJ did some athletic shit right there, and I would at practice talk shit like, yeah, I'm in my Manziel bag, like y'all didn't see that coming, or I'm in my Vic bag, like it was just and it put a hindrance on, I felt like our relationship because of how much I loved watching you play. And I'm like, this dude's fucking just special. So I was always knocked as, oh, he's nothing but a game manager or anything. But like yours was, oh, well, he's got some lucky plays. And it's like, no, but this is what this dude does. And I loved watching it. And it always made it fun for me because I just like watching different quarterbacks and how they can be successful. And for you to be successful at such a, high stage in football, playing the way you played was, and my favorite quarterback of all time was Brett Favre because he played with such a passion that you just didn't see anybody else. Like he played like he was a kid. And when I watched you play, like that's what I thought of. And that's why, hell, I ran down and with my arms up after throwing the touchdown pass, and it's like, well, I've done it a million times, but it all felt the same each time. But that was the hardest thing for me. It was, even going to SEC media days that year, I was like, damn, I just feel like the media side of it was going to put such a division between me and you from that, and it always just made me feel uncomfortable of like, man, I wish I could reach out to Johnny and shoot him a text or just ask him. At the same time, I'm like, dude, I don't know how all this played out to where, is there still a friendship there? And hell, like you said, we were rooming together and shit, we were having fun. And listen, I knew you liked sleeping in. Hell, I remember the first day I remember waking up early and I always got a shower, and I remember hitting you up and being like, hey, are you going to get up and get a shower? We coming? You're like, yeah, I'm on the way. And then I would already be there. Then you would roll in. And so, I mean, that was the biggest thing for me, personally, just looking back on that time, I'm like, damn, I felt like I missed out on times of us being friends and having fun and conversations that we could have had throughout the years. And even from when you were in Cleveland and I'm in fucking Cincinnati, and sitting there watching all the shit go down for you. Cause it's like, dude, I fucking hated it for you because I was such a big fan. Somebody that I felt like deserved their flowers. But at the same time was, in such a tough situation, one from being such a young dude in that spotlight. Right. And people don't realize until they go through it. Like, it's the same with people of like, oh man, if I was rich, I wouldn't have any problems. It's like, no, it brings problems. It's just problems you don't understand right now. But when you get to that point, like you'll find problems because it's gonna come. And for you, going to an organization where, I mean, you had to be an absolute savior. Like that's hard. I mean, that as a young dude, that's hard to do, and everybody knows that organization wasn't. I mean, hell, that's why they've had trouble for so long.
It's funny. It's funny you speaking about certain things today where you're like, we're getting in this 0-by-3 set, and we've got you were fucking dialed into a super pro style offense to where you got with Andy Dalton and them in Cincinnati. You're like, okay, I know what I'm doing in this. And it's no knock on the system that I ran because it made me who I was. But man, I fucking was taking snaps under center and fucking play action and whipping your head around for the first time ever in a, OTA, and really doing it in live reps in a preseason game week 1. So it's just like, I didn't know shit about coverages. I didn't know shit about protection.
Right.
And it just like, it definitely put me behind the 8 ball. And when you're not like taking that as like, I took that uncomfortability of not being comfortable doing that stuff as one that kind of made me nervous and like anxious to the point of where like I didn't really work hard to like get comfortable in it. I just kind of let it eat me alive a little bit. And it was one of those things where I'm like, I'm so talented, I'll be able to figure it out eventually. Eventually it'll make sense. Eventually it'll slow down. And that first year for me, it never really did. I mean, shit, you were on the sideline for that 30-0 ass whooping at the end of the season. And you guys, Jeremy Hilled us to death and, picked and sticked with Andy here and there and just did enough to just fucking murder us. And that's as a 21, 22-year-old rookie, that's enough to really bust your fucking confidence up a lot, not
100%.
scoring when you're used to scoring about 45 of them a game the year before in college. So, as much as I needed to be the savior for Cleveland and it's what I was meant to be, like I was a person who was not ready for NFL ball just based off my work ethic that year, because it all comes so easy, where I was at from a mental standpoint, dealing with fame and dealing with things on my personal life that were finally catching up to me. Cleveland is a really tough spot. I've been getting an unbelievable amount of shit for it because at the end of the day, as I sit here today, I feel some type of way about them and I don't like them and I don't have to. Just the same way you don't like fucking Auburn, you don't have to. It comes with being a guy who's played at Alabama, but it comes with a guy who played for Cleveland, had things happen in the organization that realizes why they are the way that they are. And, it comes down to first you look in the mirror and you take accountability and reflect on what you could have done to be better because it always starts with you. But secondly, there's always 2 sides to every story and 2 pieces to make it work.